Warning, this podcast does explore mature themes that may be triggering to some. If you're in immediate danger, please dial 911. If you are in a crisis and in need of resources, please contact the crisis text line at 741-741. Send the message HOME, and someone will reply. Alternatively, you may also call the National Crisis Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 and contact your healthcare provider for mental health support. Welcome to another episode of Foster Tales, the podcast. I'm your host, Randal Wells. If you haven't already, please follow, like, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at I am Randal Wells, RANDALWELLS. On today's episode, I'm talking with Grammy-nominated music educator and artist and activist Steff Reed. You can follow him on Instagram and go to his website at I am Steff Reed, STEFFREED. We're talking about his new initiative with the Power of Love Project, his 501c3 that's impacting the youth of New York City. I hope you guys enjoy our conversation. And welcome to the podcast, Steff Reed, my brother.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you so much for lending your time and your energy. You are a busy man, well sought after. You are an activist, a musician, a philanthropist. What else would we say you are? Educator, Grammy-nominated educator, might we add. What other accolades do I know of Steff Reed? I'm trying to think. Do you paint?
I'm a dad.
Oh, you're a dad. That is true. You are a dad. I forget about that part, but I guess, that's your bio.
I'm a friend.
You are a friend. You are, and a brother.
I'm a son. I'm a vegan.
Oh, vegan? Raw vegan?
A Virgo.
Virgo. Okay. Identifiers. I like this. Identity.
Head of many titles.
You are like one of those like plural, like they used to have a lot of Disney characters like that. I mean, like LLC or DDC or what are the frames that things people would say? But no, like you wear many hats, and I appreciate that about you. I met Steff many years ago when I first started my music career, back when there was a platform for social media in the medium of MySpace. Sheesh. And many years ago, you were my encouragement. And I feel like you were probably part of my very first, you're probably my very first like music family.
Wow.
I could say, because you still exist to this day. Wow. And you were just encouraging, and you were going through, you were part of the Beat Bangers. So shout out to the Beat Bangers. Yeah. And you were going through your own transitional period of producer to maybe exploring artistry, and you kind of entrusted that information in me, which I always appreciated. So knowing that, and now you've had this plethora of success through many years of working in music, and now you give back to music. When did you start being an educator of music?
Wow. Just took me down memory lane, bro. Like
I have to.
The elevator pitch version of like that "this is your life" moment. So yeah, I stumbled into education in, I think it was 2006. So I was like in the middle of like a music career and like breaking down barriers and having doors opened after like feeling so much like rejection, and like I feel like I'm starting to make a name for myself. And around that same time, as I'm making a name for myself in the music industry, someone suggested that I teach music like in an after school program. And I was like, teach? I'm a college dropout. Dropout. I have no business teaching anybody anything. And I was like, she's like, no, but you'll be great. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not a teacher. I'm a musician and a producer. I'm like all these things, but I'm not a teacher. I didn't go to school for it. I actually dropped out of school. That's not my dream. It's like, just, you don't need all that. I think you'd be great. The girl's name is Jasminda. All right, so yeah, Jasminda, she worked with a program called Weed and See, because my father, Stephen Reed, worked at the Bronx District Attorney's Office. And the Bronx District Attorney's Office had this program called Weed and See that they funded to do after school programming for kids in the South Bronx. Those are the Bronx River Community Projects. So they just wanted me to come after school a couple times a week and like work on music with the kids, whether it was showing them how to sing or showing them how to harmonize and like making a chorus or a choir with them, or just whatever, just showing up. And I was like, I don't see it. I don't know. But I eventually, Jasmine, she convinced me, and I showed up, and I actually was like, yo, this is actually kind of dope. You know what I mean? And at the time, I'm like 26, and I'm like, maybe this is an opportunity to do something that could be fun and purposeful. I didn't think too much of it. But I was like, well, if they're going to pay me to do this, this could be a cool opportunity. And within a year of doing it, I really started to fall in love with it. And it went from just being something that's like, just try it, see if you like it, to being something that's become like a career of sorts. And like, it's opened up so many doors for me, and has taught me so much, and has changed me so much in the process. And it all started from just being an activity specialist, or I guess we would call it activities at the time. It was before I even knew what the term teaching artist was. It's like just be an activity specialist and just be a counselor for like after school programming.
Okay. So that I guess I can connect the dots there. Do you remember anybody in your, like when you were growing up, where they were providing like similar access or programs that you were doing with these kids? Because for me, I've gotten to see you operate and act in New York myself. I've actually gone to one of your classes and taught with your kids. Mm-hmm. And
right, that's right.
Do you ever remember seeing that framed for you when you were a kid? Like you were growing up?
So no, I didn't really do the after school thing. However, I went to a performing arts high school.
Okay.
The twist was that it was an alternative school. So it was like kids that were like had dropped out, kids that were experiencing homelessness, kids that like didn't have a lot of credits but were like really talented. So we used to joke and say it was like Dangerous Minds meets Fame. So
dope.
Yeah. So I went to that school, and all the programming I could ever want and need was in this alternative school. And I think as I got older, I was like, I would love to give that experience that I had in high school to other people. I wish because, you know, and I'm sure you can relate to this when you get into the music business. There's so many lessons that you're learning hands-on and in the moment, that there's no way they could prepare you for these things in a book.
Never.
There's no textbook that can prepare you for a lot of the shenanigans. Mm-hmm. or even like technical skills or whatever. Like there's a lot of the things that like they will get missed if you're not actually in the business. So I think for me, it was like, I would love to be able to offer this knowledge and this information to the next generation. That was like important to me.
No, absolutely. I can see that. And that's why I asked the question, just because your approach is so different and you're very hands-on with the kids. And I mean, from what I know and what I recall from being in your session now, I've gotten to work with you on a professional level, but I've also gotten to see you interact with kids. So I feel like I've gotten this really cool vantage point of you being an educator and a creative. So I know what you're capable of with both. Part of you that I don't know is a sum of your activism, because I've never gotten to be a part of a rally in my head. We've talked about things at great length, because I talk to you about most things in my life. When did your activism begin?
Tough question. So my mother, Camille DeJourna, was and is an activist and a lawyer. And her mom took her to rallies when she was just a child. And my mom's uncle, Ewart, was professor at Harvard University, and his daughter, my mom's cousin, Lonnie Grenier, was the first tenured professor at Harvard as well. So, and also did a lot of work with social justice. And my uncle Ewart Grenier, he also did a lot of work with social justice. So I'm saying that to say I was raised in the mindset of like knowing that it's important to, like, my mom taught me feminist values as a kid. And my mom would give me Black history books and like made sure I knew who Paul Robeson was and knew who like Frederick Douglass was. And she made me do like book reports and like gave me like these Black history books and made me do book reports on like these different like Black history legends and icons. And it was important for her to know that I knew who these people were, and taught me values of like social justice and feminism. And my parents met at a protest. So you could say from like inception, I was raised into that. I think for me, I decided to use my platform and get involved. I want to say when Trayvon Martin was murdered, so like 2013, 2014.
Yeah,
around
that makes sense.
when I felt compelled to like hit the streets and like protest and start making music that was like speaking to like the things that like the injustice that was happening. I started a art exhibition series called the Frontline Exhibition, where it was based off of a song of mine called Frontline, which was, you know, about the police murders of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and Eric Gardner. And I made this song and decided to then do an art exhibition, a documentary about the process. And the show traveled from New York to Chicago to New Orleans, and it was about bringing like activists together and educators and, you know, change makers and artists, and putting them all in the room and trying to find solutions and doing like these panel discussions and performances and art on the wall that all spoke to these issues. And I feel like during that process around 2014 and 2015 is when I started to like really find my way of doing it and find my place, you know. And before that I had done teaching, like I've done like teaching songwriting for social justice, which is really in the most simplistic form is helping young people to express their thoughts and feelings about the world around them.
Yeah.
And so I was familiar with doing that work in the classroom, and eventually it led to like creating music and then to getting active in the street, and like it's blossomed to all these other things. And I think the most important thing for me was feeling this sense of connectivity to like my mom and to my aunt, to my cousin Lonnie Grenier and my uncle Ewart Grenier, and like the legacy of that my mom's side of the family had, where I grew up feeling so disconnected. I felt finally connected, and that we are doing similar social justice work.
That's amazing. So it's been familial almost for you.
Yeah, it is. I feel proud about that.
And what I love and knowing some of your journey is that, like, for me, you are the consummate student in that, like, I met you and you were a producer, and then you started to pivot out, and you were also an educator, but then you were moving into becoming an artist. And then as you became an artist, you became an activist, and then you merged the two worlds. And then it's like you added on this hat of, oh, not only am I that, I'm this as well. So everything was just met with such beautiful, perfect precision and harmony that you were like, I want to learn. And now let me elevate this. And now let me elevate this. And then I'm adding this layer. You're like a tiered cake that just keeps on. Vegan cake for you, of course, but you know that you are always striving to be a better version of yourself, and maybe that's the Virgo, but you really are just that person who is like, I want to add something else, and I want to add this layer, and I appreciate that about you.
Thank you so much. And one of the things I think is that I'm sure you can relate to this, is like trying to find your way in the world and trying to find space and trying to find connectivity and see like where do you belong, right? This it can be really tough, like looking like when you go to look for a job, like what's the dream job? Like where do I fit in? Where do all my unique skill sets and perspective, where does that fit in a job description? Where does, like, when you look for like places where your music fits, like where it's like sometimes it can feel so difficult trying to find spaces where it's pre-made for you and it's like you fit into the mold of what people are looking for. I mean, more often than not, you don't fit in to
Yeah.
what people are looking for, and either you have to decide to keep looking until you find something, or often people, they distort and they contort and and they and they change themselves and homogenize themselves to fit in these, to be the square peg in the circle hole. And it's like I got tired of trying to fit into these spaces where I don't fit, and
Yeah.
trying to change who I am for success, or the perception of success, or the illusion of this perceived success. And I decided, if I don't see the thing that I want, if I don't see the place for me, I need to create it.
Yeah.
And that's where everything started to change for me, was when I just shifted my mindset and said, if I want to see it, like if it is to be, it's up to me. And that changed everything. I started to just create the things that I wanted to see. And whether that's a platform or a project or an organization or an initiative, it's like me being a visionary and saying, this is what I see. It doesn't exist. I think it's important and people need it. And doing all the legwork to make sure that it happens and enrolling people along the way into the vision.
I love that. I love that. You were always a champion for independent artists, and you made me feel comfortable being an independent artist. I came from a corporation, I came from MTV. And so to go from that to working with you, you made me feel comfortable in saying, you know what, you don't need all that. And I know I'll vent to you and I'll say, well, I don't have da 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 da. And you're like, you don't need that. Say less. I feel like you invented say less. Like, come here and eliminate the excuses, and place yourself in the way of opportunity and be the opportunity. And I love that you provide that. And even honing this into my own initiative within foster care, and thinking about you on the frame of my path and trajectory, it was like you were really, to me, very pivotal in the role that you played to me continuing to create music, because there weren't opportunities for me thereafter. And I had to carve my own way, and you were very encouraging. And then not only was it about your encouragement, but I feel like it was reciprocated, because I was encouraging you. And that brotherhood and that connectivity, I think, was essential for me, because it was something that I was lacking. Because it's great, you can be talented, but it means nothing if you don't have the support of the community in which you're around. And I heard this great quote, and I have to say it. It's like, trauma isolates and connection heals. And you helped heal.
Thank you. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful quote.
I have to thank my cousin for that, Natasha. She was just on one of my recent episodes. And that healing that comes through, and I think of how music heals us all, and especially at a tender age, and you're speaking to these incredible kids, and these kids are so intelligent, and they are listening and hanging on to your every word and advice. I remember you taught us about, like, you're like, hey, what is the hook of this song? Just sing one hook. And you go into it, and you have this great approach with kids, and just knowing that you are giving almost like this poetic license to kids to say something, and not just say something, because you write a song, it's love. Sometimes, rarely, you've experienced love when they're that young. You think you have, but you haven't, in my head. But some iteration of it, but then now you're changing that, and like, no, write a song about something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And you have Skillshare classes, and so you were educating not only just kids, but other people. Now you've opened it up to the realm. Like, how did that feel the first time you wrote a song that was like I guess, quote unquote, woke, or that was about like a social justice issue?
Um,
Was it uncomfortable?
it wasn't uncomfortable. I think for me, it's always just like I never want to do things that feel contrived and forced,
Yeah.
which is great for artistry. It's horrible for business.
Absolutely.
That I do things when I feel it, or I don't do it if I don't feel it. So it's like I think I think I just wanted to make sure that I'm doing something that serves the people and that helps. You know what I'm saying? Like, is this needed? Is the question that I always will ask myself. Is this needed? And if it's not, then like what is needed and how do I write that? And it's like that's the lens I use. So I think the first time that I made a woke song that I actually wrote it was um 2010 or 2011, shortly after I decided, probably 2011, when I decided I was gonna like start making a project, because I my initial foray into like artistry was like doing these remixes and doing R&B remixes to hip hop songs. So like Drake and like Lloyd Banks and like Diddy and all these different songs. I would do R&B remixes, and one of them went viral. And I was like, all right, I need to start, as this thing is taking off and I'm getting all these interviews. I interviewed with like Angela Yee and I'm getting all this press coverage, and I'm like, dude, I don't even have any original material. Like, and I'm getting asked to do like, people are booking me and I'm not even prepared for this opportunity. So I think when I had to start thinking about what is my actual music gonna sound like, it was important to me to like, I think the main things in my mind was I want to make material that inspires people to keep going.
Yeah.
And I want to make music that reflects the time. So I remember one of the first songs, I was like, I wanted to talk about like the oil spill in the Gulf. I wanted to talk about war in like Palestine and like all these different social ills. And it was like, I never put that song out. Another one, I wrote a song called The Ballad of Tyler Clementi, which was, we did that maybe 2012. And that was about a young man who was caught having sex. No, he wasn't caught. His dorm partners or dorm mates, or the roommates in his dorm, they suspected he was gay, set up webcam to film him while he was having sex, I think, with a partner. And they like made it go viral and like streamed it all over campus and like humiliated this young kid. And he was ashamed and humiliated and felt betrayed and bullied. And he committed suicide. And I was like, that's a wild story. And I feel like that needs a voice and needs more people should know about that. And although I don't identify as gay, I felt as a LGBTQ ally that it's important that I use my platform to speak for those who need a voice. So those were like some of the earlier songs before I actually put anything out. But my mind was already there the whole time.
For sure. I remember having some of those conversations with you and encouraging you or giving you songs that I was like, look, here's an skewed version of an iteration that you can reference. These are songs that, because every major artist has them. It's just they're always hidden in their catalog, and people weren't like, this ain't hot. It's not hot to talk about something. And at that time, it was really almost taboo. It was like, you're gonna kill your career being a message artist. I think that was
Right.
what a lot of people used to say. You're going to kill your career being a message. You can't have that message. And those artists or conscious rappers, or because conscious R&B, I don't even know was necessarily ever a thing, but it was an idea, a feeling. But I know people definitely were trying to sway you from not doing that music at all. And so now, having done all that, it's like, now how do you even do a song without it being something and meaning something meaningful or having sustenance? how do you feel like you generate new ideas? Like, where do they come from? Or is it just like one thing leads to the next? Is it a dotted line, or is it one of those scribble scrabbles where you're like, well, this may work, or do you just try on new hats? How does that work?
There's so many ways. Like, um, earlier you mentioned my Skillshare course, and I think that was such an interesting process of like, what is my process? And it's like, there's so many processes, and there's not one way that is the right way, is one of the things that I realized while I was writing that curriculum and as I was filming the actual class. So how do I generate ideas? Sometimes I'll give you a couple little gems. One way that I generate ideas is conversation with folks. And sometimes it won't even be a conversation. Sometimes folks are venting to me.
Yeah.
And they'll say the most poignant and brilliant, profound things. And I'm like, I will jot down. I have a note. I have a note in my Evernote. So I use Evernote for like many things. And I have this one running note I've been doing for like a couple of years now. And every time someone says a phrase or a word or a statement or something that like strikes me, like, oh, that's loaded, or that feels like interesting, I'll jot it down, and that's one way. So like in a conversation with somebody, they'll say all these things, and I'm like, oh, that's real. Oh, that was honest, or that was raw, or that was funny, or that was like poetic. I like write those things down. So that's one way, is like playing like stenographer when people are venting to you. And like people, especially when you talk to like writers, you know what I'm saying? Like they're so expressive and pick such great words to describe how they feel. So like I'll I will document and capture these different phrases and words from other people. Another way to generate ideas is I'll free write. I'm a strong believer in free writing, and then reviewing what I free wrote, and then trying to find the best, strongest ideas that resonate with me, that feel like, oh, I think I want to write with that. Or once I identify those key words from my free write, I'll do word association around those words. And then within that, I'll find something that's like, this is powerful. Other times to generate ideas, to be honest, like I'll know what I want to talk about. I might have a melody, and I'm like, what's the best way to frame this statement, this sentiment? If it's like, let's have a song called Armageddon. And the idea is seizing the day. The idea is like, one day that this world will be over. One day our lives will be through and done. And it's like, what are we doing with the time we still have? Wow. And I was like, what's the best, most compelling way that I can convey that message? Again, because being a message artist, there's already, you don't want to be preachy. So for me, the way that I counter being preachy, there's many ways, but one of the many ways that I do it is like a compelling title and a catchy melody. Yeah. So like Armageddon on face value, it's like, oh, that's a tasty word. Like Armageddon, it paints a visual. It makes you want to like, oh, what's that about? So I like finding irreverent, compelling, shock value type of words that speak to the sentiment I want to make. And sometimes that means I have to go in dictionary.com or thesaurus.com or Rhyme Zone, or look it through the Bible, or look through different inspirational quotes or movie titles or like documentary titles and things like that. Like I'll look for like, what's a way that I can say this thing in a more interesting way? And like I'll go through like research process to find better ways to say a thing. And sometimes I just have like a word, like just this, I'll look through my list. If I have a word, and let's say the word is like agony, it's like, how can I tell a story with that? You know what I'm saying? It's so many ways.
Yes, you're dropping gems, and I appreciate the fact that you are. Marrying the two with activism, sometimes activism can be noise. How does activism lead into movement? And you've done a great job with the power of love, and everything that you've been able to do. You have created and cultivated this movement of other artists that are creating similar music to you. Can you speak some to that? Like how do words just not be noise and loud, but how do you get people to really experience the things that you have placed into your art?
I think one of the biggest things is like melody. Melody, when you're writing music, melody is like kin, right? It's like
Yeah.
the main thing that people remember is the melody. So like finding the most tasty, the most pleasant, the most interesting, the most memorable melody will stick in people's brain and be like a thing they wish they could forget, right? So once you start there, then it's like being mindful about your words. And it's like, there's things like you could say, there's little tricks, like you could say we. Using language like we and us is very unifying language instead of I, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I is good. I like to think of it like my song Power of Love. I believe in the power of love is a mission statement. It's a mantra, but in the context of me singing at a festival with hundreds of people, and I'm making the whole audience sing that, everybody's now on the same accord. We're all chanting, I believe in the power of love. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm now playing like, what's the word? Like I said before in my NYU course, I said, it's like a ventriloquist.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm feeding you the statement. The melody is so catchy and so good and so easy to remember. And the sentiment, I'm saying, I believe in the power of love, is something nobody's going to argue with that. And now I can, at any given time, have hundreds to thousands of people singing this in unison. And it's like the most beautiful thing. So I think it's like being mindful of like, what do you want the people to say? How do you want to motivate and mobilize people? And like, how are you writing this in a way where they're going to want to get behind it? And I think as far as movements, it's super important to get like involved with causes that are near and dear to your heart authentically, and like listen to people. Like listening is a key thing. Like, what are the people saying? What do they need? What are they angry about? What are they frustrated about? What do they want? And like, I think as artists, it's like being the voice for the voiceless. It's like take those needs, take those wants, take those frustrations, take those hopes, take those dreams, and put it to a song. Now you're being of service to the people, and you've put their hopes, their dreams, their wants, their desperations, their fears, that you're putting it into song and like amplifying it to a level that they couldn't have done on their own. And you're like including their sentiments in your art, and now you're speaking for them. And I believe that it'll resonate deeper with them, and they'll want to get behind it, and you're now part of their movement.
That's very well said. It's definitely well said, because there's so many people that we meet and encounter that are like, I've thought about being artistic, or they aren't artistic at all, but they want to know how they can support you in the cause. And I think you've done a great job of kind of showing people through example, but then just like having opportunities for them to be able to be there and show up for you.
Yeah, but also the other thing is like everybody, I think, has different strengths, and it's like important to it's important to note that, and to notice that, and that everybody can get involved in the ways that they can. And I think it's like, it's like a body. Everybody's not going to be the head. Some people are the feet. Some people are the hands. Some people are the heart. And it's like playing to your strengths, and understanding that you're part of a greater good. And it's like, whether it's Black Lives Matter, or whether it's advocating for the people that are experiencing homelessness or LGBTQ, it's like really being connected to those folks. And I think for me, one of my strengths is being a connector. So for me, putting people from different groups in the same room, and then bringing up maybe over music at a music event, and then within that night, we're going to address this thing. And then now it's like in such the context is so chill and laid back, and so like it disarms you because it's about music. But then if you can inject your message, now people are drinking, they're having fun, they feel the guards are down, they're more susceptible to the message, they're more likely to listen now, because you brought them into a space in a different context. So I think it's important to like think outside the box and be like super authentic and like holistic with your approach when you think about movements and like blending art.
Absolutely. And that's always kind of in my mission statement, even within this platform that we're on now, with it being Foster Tales. Even in my very first single, I mean, I talk about being a foster kid and who I am. I was like, imagine this, a house on a hill, white picket fence. That's where it all begins. Not a care in the world, big colleges, scholarships, a life made for TV. Picture this. And really what I was trying to iterate to people is that although you see this, that's not who I am. And even creating this space and platform and trying to find people that could kind of speak to how to be involved and what a community is. And you've done such a great job of cultivating community within what you do. So I thought you were such a relevant guest, because not only I know that you've worked with foster youth, but it can't always be so cut and dry with somebody being a foster parent or a foster kid. It's like, what about the people that aren't there, and how are they impacted by what is happening around them? Do you know if the youth that you've worked with, do you know that if anybody has been in foster care, or do you
Yes,
have a foster care story?
yeah, I do. Actually, over the summer, I was working in New York City public schools. I was a first responder working, basically teaching and working with the children of first responders. And I was working with a little girl. I don't know if I should say, could or should say her name, but
No,
she's a
no.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul, beautiful spirit. She was like, no pun intended, but like my adopted daughter, because my actual daughter lives in Denver and
Mm-hmm.
I'm far away. And so I can't be with her in person. And plus we were in a pandemic, but this little girl that I was responsible for every single day, she felt like my daughter, and I had this affinity to her, and we would work on songs and music and art. And one day her mom came to pick, every day her mom came to pick her up. But one day I actually took her to the front for pickup, and her mom was in the her mom was a different race than the child, and I was like, oh.
Mm.
And then I saw another student that was in this program came as well. And I was like, and she's like, that's their sister. I'm like, and they don't look like the mother either, and they're also a different race. And I was like, oh. And then the mom was like, yes, they're actually both adopted, and told me this story. And I was like, wow, I was blown away. And in that moment, it gave me more understanding for this little girl who I loved. And I was grateful that she had such a loving a foster mother that like was like doing all she could to create like these environments for her daughter and to find resources for her and to like create this family with this. It was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful situation. And that was one where I felt very honored and grateful to be a positive adult in her life, and to like see another side of like adoption, where it actually could be beautiful, and it could be like connected, and it could be something where it's healthy. You know what I'm saying? I've seen other situations where people have been in foster care or have been adopted, and it's not been so cut and dry. It's been, there's been some complications with that. And I think that every situation is different.
Definitely. Especially considering, like, as an educator, you're creating something so tender. And I know for me, it was my mentors when I was younger that sat down and taught me how to create a song that I idolize. And when I figured out I knew how to create my own music, it changed the trajectory of my life forever. So I'm forever, because it gave me purpose. I then and I've said this before. I think the earliest iterations of me being a performer were performing for the homes that I wanted to live in. and I had to put on, or when a social worker was come, you know, knowing a family would come by and butter me up so that way they had a good review with the social worker. And I can correlate all that. And I've been singing since I could talk. I didn't just start singing one day, and people have questioned the authenticity of my soul. And I've always sang soul music. It was all, I wrote soul music before I sang it. I had somebody sit me down and say, listening, you are writing fantastic. Your issue is that you have no point of reference. So you, while I love what you're doing, I think you should study great people. So I stopped writing from beat just to listen to greatness and to see what greatness was. And it took me out of the environment. I wasn't thinking about what was happening around me because I immersed myself in this passion, and I knew whatever I had was good. And I knew it was good enough to make people stop and listen. And I knew it was enough for people to take notice. People would say, I don't like him, but he can sing. And that was everything to me. And I put my entire identity on it, not realizing that as I got older, my entire identity was articulated upon me being a musician, not realizing I'm so many other things. But instead of being a foster kid, the cocoon that protected me was that I was a musician. So I didn't want anybody to treat me like I was a foster kid, treat me like a musician. And then thankful to Puffy for the opportunity to be on national television. Wow. So then, you know, I'm thankful that I got to have the brotherhood of them. Then to go into such a tender state, I had to act. I faked the funk. I watched a lot of television and figured it out. There were no rule books for becoming an artist at that time, but I didn't have anything. I didn't have any financial backing. I did not have anybody that was looking out for me. If anything, people were trying to take from me because they knew I had. And I only had because I had government assistance, but people wanted to take that. I was paying managers. I was paying people that had no business. I've always paid into my career. And the one thing that if I ever have to impart any musical advice to people is pay your people. Take care of the people that take care of you, because even if it's, you know, give what you have and can. It's not about like extraordinary sums. I think it's just a matter of people saying, you know, I trust you with this. And I've trusted you with my gift on many occasions. So I feel comfortable having these kind of discussions with you, because this isn't so far-fetched, you know, of a discussion that we've had, you know, in the past. So even creating and cultivating this platform of, you know, activism, I was an activist because I felt like nobody else would step up. Nobody else would say I'm a foster kid. And there was a lot of shame around that word. It was like, oh, ooh, I don't want people to know that I'm in foster care. And, you know, me going to the capital of Florida and being an ally or a champion for a bill and get legislation passed and representing every foster youth at one point in time in a room where I was the only person. And that was always awkward and uncomfortable, but it stretched me. It made me realize I had more capacity than just being this singer. I actually had a message behind what I was going to sing. And there is soul. And that's, to me, soul music. And that's what I look for in the artists that I love is, yeah, you're telling me something great and I hear it, but what do I feel from you? I don't even care about great singing, which I did trust. I'm a vocal snob to a degree in the sense, but I'm a vocal snob in if I don't feel you, you ain't nothing. If I don't feel a word you said, you could do the most beautiful run in life. I don't care. It means nothing to me because you have nothing behind it. I want to feel every vocal nodule note that you have. I want you to get into the grit of it, because that's where the good stuff is. And I've learned that, and maybe it's because I feel like that's the part of me. And I think when you get vulnerable and you tell people, you know, I posted a Ayanna Von Zant quote today on my Instagram that I love, and I feel like it's my mantra. And it says, when you don't show up as who you are, people will fall in love with you for who you are not. And, you know, I've lived in homes where I was pretending. I put on a mask to be this perfect child. And there is no perfect child. There's no perfect educator. There's no perfect parent. You know, knowing that this world that we live in, there isn't perfection. I'm not looking to be perfect. I'm just looking to learn from my mistakes or learn from my success, because I can't also look at myself as a detriment. I have to look myself as a success. I've made it through. And I see you, and you are such a light for so many, because you not only are you planting seeds and gardening in these kids, you're gardening your community of musicians as well, because for me, you speak for all of us. And that's what I always love, is that like you aren't just speaking on behalf of this artist, you are speaking on behalf of many, many artists.
Wow. Wow.
I've always gotten that from you. I give you your flowers, because to me, you can be in a room full of singers, but you'll still have the mic. And I'm like, huh? And you used to say that. And that was like, I remember when you were becoming an artist, you were like, but I want to trail. I was like, don't worry about that. Just sing. You can sing. It felt like that scene from Sister Act too. She's like,
Yeah.
if when you wake up in the morning, all you can think about is singing, then just sing.
You know what? And I give you the credit for this, is like, you told me to take a chance on myself. You said you've invested into everybody. You've like put your time, money, resources into all these different artists, but you've not before you give up, before you quit, do that for yourself. And I was like, all right, maybe he's right. I've invested in everybody but myself. Let me bet on me. And I think when we talk about being a message artist, mm-hmm. I was aware that I wasn't the strongest singer. But I knew I believed in my abilities as a musician and a producer. And I was like, you know what? I can make it sound the way it needs to sound, but as far as people buying in, as far as me feeling it, this can't just be about some songs and about my voice, because I know that's not what I'm serving. So it's like, what am I bringing to the table? And I was like, got clear on like my story and like my messages. And it's like, these are the lessons that I've learned. And like, that's valuable. Now, similar to like a Bob Dylan, I don't think people are showing up because of his voice, but it's like what he has to bring, what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? In these songs. And it's like, for me, it was like, that's a very similar thing. Like, I know my value is in like what I'm about and like what I'm talking about and like the messages and like the hope and the light and the like the resilience and all these different lessons and things. And I put all that into the music. So thank you for pushing me to bet on myself when I was ready to give up on my life and give up on music.
No charge. There never will be a charge for it. That was yours. It's free of charge. Mm-hmm. You know, the reality to me is that you've done so much, and I love what you've gotten to do. And I've gotten to be a consultant on many of projects that people don't know that I've been a part of. And I've gotten to sit in many rooms that people will never know that I've been in. And you've gotten to as well work with many of artists and perform on many stages. Are there moments that mean more? Like, is there like one moment in particular, like now for you is like your career highlight that you have?
Oh, there's so many, man. Mm-hmm. Career high. Oh man, there's so many. It would be unfair to like.
Yeah, I'm not saying like the one, but like a career highlight. Like what is like one?
Performing at the Apollo Theater was definitely one, with a band, and like on the main stage with my band, and like blending activism, because we did an action. We did like a performance art piece of a reenactment of a police murder, marching to the stage, and then perform my song Frontline with my full band, packed Apollo crowd. And I remember being a child and watching Showtime at the Apollo on TV and watching like Steve Harvey introduce all these different artists and saying, one day I'm going to be there, and wanting to do it my whole life, but feeling like scared. So I got my job at the Apollo as a teaching artist. I was like working there for a couple of years as a teaching artist, teaching songwriting and social justice with the Apollo Theater's education department. So this opportunity came to perform, and they wanted me to come and like perform as part of this Black History Month show in like 2016. And I was thrilled and over the moon, and I made it like a movie, and it was like my biggest show my personal biggest show. And it was like a special moment, because I flashed back to like, as I'm on the stage and performing and seeing all these people, it was like, oh my God, this, like the child me, he made it. He persevered, he broke through. And like, I flashed back to like recording VHS tapes and like studying performances and like, wow, I'm an adult with my own band on the stage. I did it. So that was like a special moment. Another one would be performing at Royal Albert Hall with the late great Bobby Womack. Me and his daughter we're very good friends. I was producing and writing material for her. I was also in her band. And when her dad, Bobby Womack, went on his last tour, he let his daughter, Gina Ree Womack, open up for her. And out of all her band and all her producers and writers and everybody, she picked me to like play and sing backgrounds. So it was just me and her. The setup was just me and her. And there was thousands of people. Royal Albert Hall is thousands of people.
That's massive. I mean, the like, Apollo.
It was like the Apollo is big too, but Royal Albert Hall is
massive.
Dude, it was like a sea of people. It was like so crazy. And we're in London. And that was 2013. And I was just blown away. It just like, it blew me away. And I was just like, those are just two big moments where I was like, I've never seen anything like this. I've never done anything close to this. The third one I'll say is performing at, oh shit, there's so many, dude. There's like there's all these moments. Like right now is a moment. Sitting with you and talking about these beautiful memories is a moment in itself, because often as an artist you have like what's the word, imposter syndrome, and you feel like you know, like this is fake and nobody cares and I should really just stop. I should just quit. And then it's like the Instagram algorithm makes you feel like nobody cares and nobody's looking and nobody's checking for you. So even getting to sit here and talk to you about these moments, you're giving me the opportunity and holding space for me to like reflect on the good times and the things that were blessings when often I feel like an imposter. So thank you. This is my latest moment.
Oh, absolutely. And I think so many people can relate going forward. And I think what utilizing you as a resource for is a model of success. Some people think success is so linear, and I've gotten to see the highs and the lows, and you've gotten to experience those with me as well. Those moments of, I just want to quit, forget it. I'll work in corporate America forever, and that's what I'll be. And then realizing that I wouldn't be fulfilled. And to go through and think about how many times it's easy to say no and just stop and just turn off the microphone, turn off everything, forget being an educator. And then you realize when you're giving back, somebody's looking at you for the answers, and you never realize the answers are inside of yourself. And you've at least talked me down many a times through mental health, whether it be, you know, you've been a mentor to me in such a way that I couldn't do this podcast without you.
Thank you.
To know that you're an educator and, you know, you're giving back. And then on top of that, now you have your own organization, like you're a 501(c)(3), yes?
501(c)(3).
C3. Okay. See, I always say that. I always like combine it. It's like saying all the letters. You're like, how, so what's that transition been like to be the entity? Now you have your own nonprofit, and congratulations, by the way. That is amazing.
Thank you. It's wild because I remember, what are we, 2021?
Ugh.
So this time, 4 years ago, this time of year, 4 years ago, I was getting ready to go on the Power of Love tour. I released my Power of Love single in July of 2017. We launched the Power of Love tour. I did a Power of Love course at collaboration with NYU, where I turned my album into a curriculum. I had the Power of Love merch line. Flash forward a year from that, July 2018, released the Power of Love album. And here we are 4 years later from 2017, the inaugural moment of this Power of Love move, like speaking of creating movements, right? So like releasing the single for Power of Love in 2017, releasing the album 2018. Here we are 4 years later, the Power of Love single and album is now turned into this nonprofit organization. And it's, Man,
A single became an album, became a curriculum, became a movement, became an organization.
A single became a tour, became a curriculum, became a merch line, became an album, became a protest relief initiative, became a nonprofit organization.
Gardening. You water your plants, please, people. Water your plants.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
The way that it happened was through my great relationship with Judson Memorial Church, based here in New York City. They have a deep, long history in activism and social justice, and they're like very arts driven and LGBTQ centric. And I felt very comfortable in this queer, artsy environment that is a church. And I asked them if they would be my fiscal sponsor, meaning Judson Memorial Church is a 501c3 because they are a church. I said, could you be my fiscal sponsor so that I can raise funds to do like mutual aid and protest relief? They said, of course. So we did it for a year with just me raising funds and them receiving it for me, and making sure that when folks send them money under my name, people can get a tax deduction for that. I built out this nonprofit, and it's in collaboration and partnership with Judson Memorial Church, where we're doing this freedom school. It's a model that the Black Panthers kind of started. So it's like basically teaching kids social justice and arts and like community. And it's a pilot program. My larger goal is to build my own school. But for now, I'm like starting with this summer program, and it launches in July, and it's in August, and we're doing a week in July, a week in August, hiring teaching artists that from different disciplines, from art to filmmaking, to dance, to music, to whatever, mixed with social justice. So getting people to like have the opportunity to take these different art forms and learn social justice through that lens of that art form. Getting them to like get guest speakers that will have different activists and different artists to speak about organizing and speak about different issues that they're doing. And so the kids can really see how the work that we're doing in these classrooms connects to the outside world. And then at the end, it'll be a culminating event where they share out their art, and, you know, it's going to be really beautiful. And I'm raising funds for that now. I don't know. I think the biggest thing I can say is if you have an idea, see it through.
Yeah. That's real. So Arts and Activism Youth Program that's happening this summer. It's in the New York area. So if somebody wants to be involved.
Judson Memorial Church and in Washington Square Park. So the headquarters is going to be at Judson Memorial Church, which is in Manhattan next to NYU. That's where we're going to be situated.
And who is eligible to be and partake in the program?
We're looking for middle school and high school kids. So you don't have to have an arts background. You don't have to have an activism background. It will be great. It's like it would be awesome if your background is in activism or you have a curiosity for activism and you have a curiosity for the arts, but it's not required. The requirement is that you show up and be willing to do the work. It's free for middle school and high school kids, and that's the only requirement. We're looking to do 50 kids in August and 50 kids in July.
That is amazing. That is amazing, friend. Someone wants to get involved with your cause. How can they get involved? How can somebody help you at this very
Go to the website, thepowerofloveproject.org. Again, thepowerofloveproject.org. There's all the information you need about like what programs we're offering, what we do, what we're about, background on me, background on Judson Memorial Church, as well as like links to the Instagram. Also follow the Instagram account at The Power of Love Project. So
I'll also make sure to leave that in the episode description. So anybody who is looking for it, they can see it there and easily access as well in the episode description of this episode.
Send some funds, send what you can, whether it be $10 or $10,000. Send what you can, and it's tax deductible. The money goes straight to the work that we're doing. whether it's hiring personnel, consultants, teaching artists, supplies, sanitizer, masks, whatever the supplies that we need to service the community, that's what the money is going towards. And again, it's tax deductible, so you can use it on your taxes for next year. When you file, you can say, I've contributed this, we give you a receipt. And yeah.
You're also accepting donations too, right?
Accepting donations.
That is amazing. So it's not just about monetary, it's also about whatever you can contribute for the arts program.
Yeah, if you like, let's say for right now, we're looking to we
food
need
vendors, right?
Food and beverage. So if you can't give money but have access to like if you work at a corporation that makes, I don't know, juice, all right, or water, hey, give us an in-kind donation to the organization of cases of juice or water. If you have access to food and you like work with a corporation, feel free to donate that. You can expense it, or you can do an in-kind donation and you can get tax deductions off of that, or whatever the case may be. If you have resources, those are also needed.
And then you need volunteers as well, right?
You also need volunteers, hands on deck.
Volunteers, he's creating community. He's also, you're hiring, you're looking for donations. Like, I really think this is a fantastic organization.
The biggest thing is, like, for me, is it's a multi-tiered thing. Like every month we give away these micro grants to BIPOC women in the community that are doing positive work. It's like doing these youth programs, being able to hire folks in a time where like unemployment is up. I'm excited to like hire teaching artists and give them, pay them fair living wage and for their time and their services, and helping to put my people back to work. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking to have a very diverse cohort of teaching artists and consultants, and just paying it forward, man.
I love it. And I definitely can't wait to be involved and work with you and figure out a way to get from LA to New York and New York to LA to make that bus trip happen.
I would love to like come to LA, work on music with you, and also figure out a way to do a performance and a workshop somehow.
Yeah, we're gonna work it out. We'll work out those details. Those are minor details. All we have to do is actually speak it into life, and it manifests itself, folks.
Hallelujah.
Gardening.
Hallelujah.
Gardening. Hallelujah. In that spirit. Well, do you have anything else that you want to let people know about? I mean, we have what's your actual website? Your website, aside from your organization?
IamSteffReed.com. IamSteffReed. IamSteffReed.com. IamSteffReed.com. My Instagram is @IamSteffReed, and you can listen to my music on Spotify. Search Steff Reed. YouTube channel, search Steff Reed, and that's how you find me.
Well, again, I appreciate you, sir. Thank you for your time, lending your time and talents to this platform, and I really, really do appreciate all that you're doing in the community.
Wishing you the best of luck with this platform and with your different initiatives towards like raising awareness and advocacy. I'm encouraging you to push this forward and to like figure out ways to reinvent this, and to like find ways to reinvent foster tales, and to like what other spaces can this live, and what different ways can you like hold space and create space for young people, and like create opportunities to enrich the lives of those who led a similar path as you, but that were younger. Like, how can you make it easier for them?
Yeah. And for me, it's always been about frame of reference, because I didn't really have anybody to look up to that even said that they were a foster kid. I can't think of a single person other than the orphan Annie. Yep. I really don't know of anybody when I was, the age that I was, that I had somebody to see. So that's why I felt like this was necessary, because I realized people don't talk about it. Now we have some celebrities. I know Tiffany Haddish, Colin Kaepernick, Marilyn Monroe, oddly enough, was in foster care. So looking and finding the platform and culture, and seeing that people are starting to say that they've experienced these things, but it's been such a thing of shame. And I want to eliminate the shame and just have pride in where you come from, because, privilege sometimes comes in being able to track back your family, but you don't realize as you get older, you choose your family. So I do appreciate you being part of my chosen family. And
Thank you, Randy.
I appreciate you instilling and imparting this wisdom on the listening audience. Really do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'll talk to you and see you soon.
A friendly reminder that the track that you are hearing right now was actually produced by Steff Reed. So many thanks to him. You can go over to at I am Steff Reed, STEFF REED on Instagram to follow him and get updates on everything that he's working on, and head over to thepowerofloveproject.org to hear more information about his organization. And thank you for listening. Hope you guys have a great week.